Good evening and welcome to tonight's driver's ed class. We are at the beginning of vacation. So after tonight's class, we will not be meeting for, a week and a half, at least here online. So we're going to be getting a lot of driving done. So remember to sign in on your phone and to log in under the comment section so I know that you're here. So I'll get my phone out so I can see people checking in, so I can see who's here. So we're halfway here. We got 10 people. So I sent in the information to the state of who is on the roster. So your process of beginning to get your license has started. So the state knows that you are enrolled in a official driver's ed class. So that is good to know. So the class is officially closed for anybody that was trying to link in and get on to this driver's ed program. So welcome. Looks like we're getting a good crowd. We're getting there. If you have signed up, subscribed to the YouTube channel, you should be getting a notification, I believe, indicating when class is starting. So this should not be unfamiliar to you. So we're at 13 right now. All my good students are online right now. How about if I put it that way? Those that are lagging behind may not be the ones that I think about. So I'm going to break this to you since you're on already. If you go to the remote Facebook page, I have listed a calendar that has a blank week. I haven't scheduled anybody. What I would like you to do is to tell me every single day that you would be available to drive. I'm going to take a look at what you have available, and then I will be contacting you when we're going to try to drive. So I would like to try to get at least a minimum of 3 hours in with most of you. Now, I know some of you are going on vacation or are going to be out of town for a couple days. That's fine. You know, it's what vacation's all about. But since you're in school and you don't have a lot of free time, your only availability to drive with me is between 3 and 6. And when we've got 19 people in class that need driving hours, and I've only got 3 a day, that's hard to really get most of you done. Now, I know some of you have later birthdays, that too. Some of you don't have many hours in with your parents, so that's going to push you getting your license back. But I just can't roll a lot of students into the next driver's ed class. So try to make yourself as much available as possible. I will be driving tomorrow. I do have some openings for tomorrow. If people would like to drive, I'll have to get a hold of some of you about Sunday too. Let me just pull that up. Let's see, I've got it right here. So this is what you will find on the remote page. So I don't have Friday listed here, but I believe I've got Friday pretty much. Let me kind of take a look at my phone. So let me take a look and see what tomorrow actually looks like. So Mason is at 4 o'clock, but I have 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock open tomorrow. And then I've got, if you've got G period or if you want to drive during lunch, you can, get to the school. We can drive, earlier on Friday. I don't think the snow is going to be that bad, so I don't think that's going to be an issue. Sunday, I've got an 8 o'clock, 10, and 11. I don't think I'm going to do Sunday afternoon, but I do have a Saturday afternoon, and I don't know if he's on right now, but Xander, please let me know whether you can continue to drive at 2 o'clock. We had discussed that. So I've got 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock on Saturday that's open. So we really have to kind of make good on vacation time to get hours in, because once we start up a class again, in a week and a half, it's going to be tough getting 2 times in a week. It really is going to be hard unless you've got free studies. Some of you still don't have textbooks, so we're going to have to make arrangements where you can come by the school and pick them up. I have plenty now. I tried to download on the remote Facebook page, but I don't think it really worked that well. I was having some issues. So yeah, some people are having a hard time downloading the sheet. Yeah, it's a PNG image on a PC. So PCs don't play well with Macs. So we're going to. Okay, Mason, you want 3 o'clock? That's fine. I can give you 3. I'll have to try to find a way to get the information to you. We're going to try to drive tomorrow at 10 o'clock, and we'll talk about that. So that's kind of a quick rundown about driving. If you've got any questions, please text me and let me know. Okay, good, Xander. You're fine for Saturday. That's good. Okay, that's good. I'm starting to see messages as they pop up, so I can kind of deal with it. Please let me know if you have a PC or a Android phone, because, like I said, getting some of this information to you is kind of difficult. So we'll make the best of it. Oscar, you're another person I haven't driven with. I know your schedule is kind of crazy, so make sure you text me tonight so we can try to set up some drive times to get you going. Everybody else, I think we're starting to get the ball rolling on most of you, so that's a good thing. Some of you did do your homework. Some of you still have to provide the pretest to me. Some of you, still have to do the Google Earth assignment that I gave you. Try to find an area that is unsafe and how could it change? What could we do differently to make roads a little bit safer? So we're going to just touch on that just a little bit. I want to show you a few clips that I have included in the presentations over the years. In the video that we ended with last night, we saw a country road where trees were way too close to the edge. Guardrails were actually leading you right into these areas. Bridge abutments that didn't have protection. You have to understand that if you're driving and you're driving well, but for whatever reason, someone comes in front of you and you have to leave the roadway, you need a place to go. And when you do need a place to go, you want to try to make sure that it is a safe place for you to go. Bad weather sometimes will put your car into a spin or into a slide and going off. Yeah, you could text it. Please submit the homework through a text message. That's the best way to do it. So I'm starting to see some of the messages come up. So I apologize if I just stop my train of thought to answer a question that pops up on the screen. But that's the nature of this type of a class. So it's kind of better than Zoom, I think. So here's a picture that I had taken of a intersection in Milton, New Hampshire. And the question that I'm asking you is, what could be different? Now, I think it's kind of obvious what could be different. The telephone pole could be out of the road. Isn't that crazy that the telephone pole is actually about 2 feet? And if you take a look at the picture, off on the right side of the roadway is a telephone pole. Why don't they just stretch the wires? Move the wires onto the telephone pole that's like 10 feet away. The other thing that makes this so dangerous, this is right in front of an elementary school. And I don't know about you, but when I was a young kid, I used to ride my bike to school. Take a look at, there's a wire that connects to the telephone pole. It's very, very faint to see. So can you imagine being on your bicycle and you're bombing down the hill and you're going to go around the corner right here to make a right-hand turn? You're going to get knocked right off your bike, if not get decapitated. That is one of the most unsafe things that I've come across in a long time. Let's take a look at the same intersection from a different vantage point. Isn't that crazy? See, you can see the support wire. They don't even put the support wire on the grass. They even post it. They pull the wire right down onto the sidewalk. Now, I will tell you, it's been a couple years since I've been up to this intersection, but I have heard that they have moved the wire and they have moved the telephone pole. So enough people have probably complained about it. And that's the part about the HTS, that we, the people, if we don't think something is unsafe, and a lot of you gave examples that were fantastic about roadways that were unsafe because of visibility, because they were narrow, because of speed. This is how things get changed. And a lot of times, engineers do things that are easy. You know, why spend more money, spend more time working on a particular area to make it safer? Let's just put this, a street here. We're not going to think about re-engineering the width of it. So that is a problem that we have to always take a look at. How can we make our communities safer? Now, Durham is one of the few places that I've been teaching drivers at, and I've taught in other cities, that uses speed tables all over the place. Now, Dover does have one behind the athletic fields, but most towns, like I live in Rochester, and we don't have a speed table at all. Now, we may see a speed table near the high school in a parking lot, but it's not on the main road. So Durham has utilized this type of method to bring people's speed down. And that's what we're trying to do, is make people go a little bit slower. Traffic jams. One of the problems with our highway transportation system is we're getting more cars on the road than there are lanes of roads to handle traffic. And I don't know, you're pretty young. I don't know if you can remember the construction that was going on the bridge that went from Durham, Dover area over to Newington. But can you remember when they used to only have like 1 or 2 lanes because of construction, and they were still trying to finish things up? How much easier it is now to go to the mall from Durham. I don't think I've seen traffic backed up in that area for a long time, but it used to be a common problem, especially in the wintertime, because everybody would slow down and everything would get bottlenecked. So traffic jams are something that we have to take a look at and think about. When should we be doing construction? How many lanes should we have open to make sure people can get to where they're going? I do want you to write down this definition. This is from chapter 1 in the textbook. It talked about risk. Now, risk defined, the definition of risk is the chance of injury to yourself or to others, and the chance of damage to your vehicle or property. Now, it's real, and it's more probable than you think. So every time that you drive, you've got to think in the back of your mind, if I don't do what's right, if the people on the road coming towards me don't do what's right, we're going to have an issue. So that's just a healthy perspective of driving. Always assuming that I've got to be my best, and I've got to look out for the problems of other people that they're creating for me out on the roadway. Now, dangerous and vulnerable. Okay, once you write this down in your notes, okay, I will probably test you on this at some point. If you are not paying attention while you're driving, let's say you're distracted by a passenger, you're distracted by your phone going off, you are looking for a different song on your phone to play through your system in the car, so you're not really focusing on the road up ahead, you're considered dangerous. Okay, you're doing the unsafe driving practices out on the road. Now, vulnerable is where you're not crossing the center line, but you're not really paying attention. You're looking at the road, but you're not looking at where pedestrians are, lights that are changing, signs that are telling you what to do, cars that could be coming towards you. You're just basically just kind of mindlessly driving down the road between the yellow and the white line. You're going to put yourself in a vulnerable situation. So that means something bad's going to happen, and you're probably not going to see it right off. You're going to be lagging a little bit behind of picking that up. So let me show you Andy Pilgrim again, how he describes dangerous and vulnerable.
Sides to the distracted driving issue that all drivers need to understand, and it revolves around overall awareness. If your eyes or mind are away from driving for some distraction, then you are always either dangerous or vulnerable. Let me explain. Many drivers, both experienced and new, believe they are safe and doing nothing wrong as they drive distracted, if you can believe that. They tell me they can drive distracted, maintain their speed, stay in their lane, etc. They actually tell me this as if they are above the distracted driving problem. I want to change this extremely dangerous perception right here. We've all seen or heard tragic stories about drivers hitting other vehicles head-on. A driver who veers into another lane or into oncoming traffic is obviously completely unaware and dangerous. There is no doubt about that one, but let's look a little deeper. To the drivers who think they can successfully drive distracted, I explain this. You may think you can drive distracted and not be dangerous, but I know for certain you are vulnerable. Imagine, for the sake of discussion, that you were looking away from the road for a second or deep into your phone call right at the moment an oncoming vehicle veered into your lane. Exactly. You would not see them at all if you were looking away, or you would react much slower because you were distracted and your mind was deep into the phone call. Not good, huh? Research shows us that this is accurate. Every day this tragic scenario plays out on the roads. Bad choices followed by unfortunate timing. It takes two fully or partially distracted drivers coming together in most collisions and crashes. Never give up your chance to see distracted drivers coming into your driving space. I don't want you to be dangerous or vulnerable. And please, never with children in the vehicle. Many drivers, both experienced and new, are not respecting that driving is different. The potential downside to driving mistakes are well known to parents. Driving deserves more respect from all drivers. The cost of avoidable mistakes by new drivers is mind-numbing. We are talking avoidable heartbreak and billions in medical expenses, legal costs, and property damage. There is a troubling trend I need parents to be aware of. Many teens are now waiting to take the driving test until they are 18 or 19 years of age. In most states, an 18 or 19-year-old can walk into a DMV and take their driving test with no driver training whatsoever. This information should clearly be a wake-up call to all parents. I definitely want to give a shout out to parents watching who take driving very seriously and never drive distracted, especially when there are children in the vehicle. The information and knowledge here has to be aimed at the majority of parents and adults who drive distracted every day. I made my second PSA truth to give non-distracted driving parents and adults respect, and to also shine another light on the extent of the distracted driving problem.
I just never thought my kid was paying that much attention to my driving.
Let's take a look at truth.
I have 3 wonderful children. They've learned everything else from me. Why would driving be any different?
Driving deserves respect.
If something had happened to my kid because they had been driving with a distraction that I know in my heart they had learned from me, I would never forgive myself.
It's not enough to tell them. With driving, you have to show them the right way.
Before I get into obstacles, I want to share a very important piece of data about exactly how long most people drive with their children in their vehicle. There are variables to consider, such as age of the children, do the children go to daycare or school, 1 and 2 parent homes, etc. But the average amount of time parents spend ferrying their children around is usually between 10 and 30 hours a month. The average driver is in their car for 70 to 90 hours a month. Please make sure you drive distraction-free at all times, but especially when your children are in the vehicle. So, let's check out the obstacles. distractions have been around a while, I'm going to explain why smartphones and smart devices are being singled out for so much discussion and new laws against their use while driving. Eating a burger and phone use are both driving distractions that cause vehicle collisions and crashes every day. But there is a very important difference between the many driving distractions such as eating a burger and the use of smartphones while driving. This difference is critical to understanding the whole distracted driving issue, and that is frequency. You don't spend hours eating a burger as you drive, but people do spend hours talking on the phone. The huge problem for new drivers is that they spend 5 to 7 hours on their smartphones per day, but it's not phone calls for them, it's texting, email, updating message boards, etc. It's now reached 4,000 to 5,000 text messages a month for the average 14-year-old, and it's going up all the time. This texting or typing reality is exactly why all parents and adults need to separate their phone use from driving when children are in the vehicle. If parents consistently separate driving from phone use, then over time, children will see that driving is different and that smartphone use must wait. If adults don't separate their use of a smartphone while driving with their children in the car, then there is little to no chance their child will put the phone away as they start to drive. Remember, it's not enough just to tell them, you have to show them the.
And I think that is a good way, that he ended it, is that you have to show them and not just tell them. Now, let's go back to the beginning of the video when he asked the 6th grade class and the 7th grade class, how many of you, we're going to make this a driver's ed question, so you're going to have to answer this on the YouTube comment section. So you're going to have to throw your parents under the bus potentially. How many of you have parents that get angry behind the wheel of the car? They scream or flip people off. How many of you have parents that are eating in the car while they're driving, or texting, or talking on their phone? So let's see how many people will admit that they've got relatives that are doing this type of behavior. Because it's what we call modeling. And it's very hard for you to stand up and be different if everybody around you is doing the same thing. We tend to learn from our parents, from our siblings, our older brothers and sisters. But we've got to do what is right. So we've got to break that cycle. The other thing that they mention at the end is that the frequency. You're still new at driving. You haven't learned it all. Haven't even started to learn it. The different aspects of being a safe driver. Your parents have been doing it for a long time. So eating the burger, trying to get to soccer practice with you, it probably saves time. It's multitasking. It's only going to probably be for about 10 minutes, and you're going to woof that thing down. But talking on the phone, no lie, we've had people behind us in the driver's ed car, and they've gone maybe 5-10 minutes still on their phone. You can see them holding it right up to their head. I would almost venture to bet, too, that all of you have been on your cell phone at least 3 or 4 times today. And if you were to put a number minute-wise, if I was to ask you, write down the total minutes that you think you've been on your phone today, I would almost bet that every single one of you have been on your phone probably at least a half hour, if not more. I mean, that's quite a bit. I would say some of you probably close to an hour, especially if you're watching videos and things like that. We're so tied to our cell phone. It's our life. And we tend to take that into the car with us once we get our license. And we think, I'm getting good at driving. I can multitask. I can do this. But it just isn't safe. It will break down. We're going to be talking about vehicles in a little bit. But I just want to, leave it right here, is that when you're driving, and we're going to talk a little bit about car equipment today, make sure that your car is in the best possible condition when you drive. And when you're out on the road, always try to anticipate what other people are doing. We saw that in the video about being dangerous and vulnerable. When we get back in class in a week and a half, we're going to have a whole day talking about seatbelts, airbags, and helmets, especially kids on bikes and motorcycles. Drive only when you're in sound physical or mental condition. We're going to have a section on that. And always try to make a conscious effort to develop your driving skills. One of the lessons that we're going to have in the middle of class is how can we increase our vision? How can we be better at picking up what we need to do? I always find drivers that are actively involved in looking down the road, looking for street signs, looking for speed limit signs, traffic lights, usually tend to drive a little bit better than those that are just focusing on the roadway and not going over the white line or over the yellow line or what their speed is. And I can always tell those that are looking, even though I'm not asking you that question. And we're going to also have a couple classes talking about certain type of driving skills like parking or turning or merging and passing. So that's going to be coming up in some future classes. But for tonight's class, what we're going to basically focus on is, are you really ready to drive? What are the important steps of getting your vehicle out onto the road to drive? So I want you to get out a blank piece of paper if you don't have one down. So hopefully you're taking notes throughout class, because I gave you a few things that I wanted you to write down within the last 10, 15 minutes. But here we're going to go through a little bit more. So let's kind of break things down into getting out on the road. Now, we're going to assume that you're already a licensed driver. So we're not going to talk about where you are right now, because when you get in the driver's ed vehicle, I'm the one that's controlling where we're going. But what I wanted you to focus on with this first slide is that you need to have a sense of direction, because there's going to come a time really quick when you're a licensed driver and nobody's going to be in the car with you to help you give you directions. So no longer is it a parent telling you to turn left and right at an intersection, or a driving instructor telling you left or right at an intersection. It's going to totally be you. And I would almost bet that at least half of you, if I got you about 10 to 15 minutes, I don't care which way we go out of Durham, north, south, east, or west, if I get you 10, 15 minutes out of Durham, you're totally lost. You're going to have no idea where we are. I can't tell you how many times I've had students look at me and say, while we're driving, Mr. Toll, I really have no idea where we're at. And I says, well, you'll know in a moment. You'll know in a moment. Read your signs. One of the favorite things that I like doing with students, especially when we're near the end of our driving, is to take them someplace, away from Durham. And all of a sudden I'll just say, okay, you've got to get us back to the high school. I'm not going to tell you how to get there. And most people look at me like, you got to be kidding me. We've been just driving for a half hour and we're so far away from the school. How do I can't remember all the turns that we took. But I want you to start thinking about, which way should we go to Durham? Do we need to go north? Do we need to go south? What are the different route numbers? There are only two major routes in Durham. 155, which is on the western side of Durham, and on the eastern side, which go north-south, would be 108. And both of them take us to Dover. So if we can get to 155 or 108, we're basically coming back. Route 4 can get us to Durham. That also can get us to Portsmouth and Concord. And Route 9, if you're from Barrington, Route 9 will get you to 155. And then from 155, you're coming in towards Durham. So we need to basically have a basic understanding of direction. The next thing I want you to think about when you get in the car to drive, not only where you're going, but how am I today? Am I emotionally fit to drive? Am I physically okay to drive? I can't tell you, a Saturday morning, what it's like to see a student get in the car. And I've asked a few times, because, the hair is all disheveled and, the eyes, only halfway open. And I'll say, so we're driving at 8 o'clock right now. When did you wake up? Oh, about 20 minutes ago. So basically you rolled out of bed, put on some clothes, and you came to drive. Yeah, kind of. You haven't had breakfast. You haven't had coffee. No, I didn't have time. I'm going to do it after we drive. You gotta have a clear head. You gotta have a mind that's processing things that are coming towards us. So come prepared to drive, ready to drive, physically and mentally. All right. Next thing, like tomorrow. And Keen, I think I saw you say you want to drive tomorrow. I'll text you. Definitely, I have an opening. I think we could probably do right around 11 o'clock if that works. But we're going to have some snow tomorrow. So those of you that I'm going to schedule you for tomorrow morning, we're going to have to deal with it. We're going to have to drive in it eventually. So we'll, kind of cater our driver's lesson, not only what we need to cover, but also we'll introduce some of the techniques and things that we should do while we're driving in bad weather. So the 4 types of weather that we need to be concerned about, and when I say snow, I'm talking winter weather. I should have put winter weather. So what we got to be thinking about is ice, sleet, and snow, rain, fog, and darkness. Okay, those are the big 4. Those are when you're going to have to be at your best because it's not a nice day. You can't see lines. You can't see signs. Traction on the road may be a little bit different. So we're going to have to kind of change the way that we approach our driving. Now, sometimes, and we did this, I don't think I had anybody schedule on, was it Tuesday? Yeah, it was our first class, so no one was driving. It was from my previous class. I had 2 people scheduled for Tuesday, but I canceled out because there was ice, and ice is one of the worst things to drive on. And I actually had a tree down in front of my house with a electrical crew and the fire trucks, so I couldn't even get out of my driveway for about an hour and a half. So I decided that, no, it's not probably smart to be driving in this type of weather. So being smart is knowing when not to drive, okay? Traffic conditions, if you haven't driven much, these are areas and times that I think you should try to avoid putting yourself in a situation that's very stressful. Before school and everybody's crowding into the parking lot, people don't use directionals. They follow too closely. So if you've only driven a couple times with your parents, if you're coming to school, probably might not be the best time to get some hours in. Same thing with after school. It just gets crazy when everybody's leaving the parking lot. And you have to wait, too, to get out onto the road. On normal days, heavy traffic. So we're talking about people getting to work and coming home from work. And holidays are high traffic. So high traffic usually equals high stress. So if you're a stressful person, avoid driving during stressful times. So get your hours in with your parents when it's less traffic. Saturday morning, Sunday morning, on vacation, do it midday when people are going to already be at their destination. So these are things that will, bring you along a little bit quicker. I think that you learn more when you're in control of the vehicle and you feel calm. I think if you're very nervous and you're just reacting to things and you're just not remembering things, you're just only reacting, it's survival. And I don't think that's necessarily the best way to learn. So this is the driver's ed vehicle. If you haven't seen my car before, that's what it looks like. That's where I'll be parked out in front of the school. So when we approach the vehicle, I would like you to take a look on either side of the car. Now, mostly when you're coming to the school, I am telling you, you can just pop right into the car. You can kind of skip this part because I've already made the check around the vehicle. But one of the questions, I don't know if you can remember this from last night, but when I showed you the DMV test where the other driver's ed teacher was taking the exam, one of the questions was, before getting into your car, what should you do? And the answer is to check around and make sure there's nothing around that could interfere with you backing up or, going to hinder you getting out onto the roadway. So this could be one of the questions on your driver's test. So approach the vehicle, make sure it's safe. There's no flat tires, there's no oil. So all these things are potential problems. I'm not saying that they're there all the time, but they could be. Making sure that no one's taking your license plate, make sure no one's broken your lights or your windows where they could have, stolen something from the back seat. And the last thing that's mentioned here is carjacking. I want you to write this down. Carjacking happens when your vehicle is running and you're inside, or you're approaching your vehicle and you have your keys in your hand as you approach the vehicle. The easiest car to steal is a car that's already running. So where would they carjack you? At a stop sign, at a traffic light, maybe in a mall parking lot because you're in your car and you're looking at your phone before you pull away. This is why it's so important. This is the next thing we're going to talk about, is the minute you get in your car, you should lock your doors. Make sure nobody is able to get into your vehicle. But carjacking is real. It does happen. There was a situation, it's been many years now, probably well over 10 years, someone was carjacked in Barrington, New Hampshire at the Irving gas station. When someone went inside to pay for gas, when they came out and popped into their SUV and drove away, there was somebody waiting in the back seat. And they were kind of, hunched down so you really couldn't see them. And the person drove away and they got carjacked. So it does happen. It does happen around this area. Let me show you a news clip. This was from Georgia. And I think the funny thing about, I shouldn't say funny because someone lost their life, but the ironic thing about this carjacking story is that the person that stole or was trying to steal a car had already tried to steal a car and chose not to take that one and went to a different vehicle. And I think the reason why they did not take the first vehicle they tried to carjack was because they found out it was a manual transmission. And some people don't know how to drive a manual transmission because you got to shift gears and use a clutch pedal. And I would almost imagine that probably 3/4 of you haven't ever driven a manual transmission. And we may even talk about that a little bit later tonight. So let's take a look at this incident in Georgia. Oh, the other thing is always look for animals and children around a car before you get in, because animals, especially when it's cold, they like to go for protection in the car wheel, the tire wheel well here or up near the engine to keep warm. So watch out for that. So carjacking, here we go.
This noon, a developing story out of Kalamazoo County. One man is dead, another arrested for the shooting and carjacking. 24-hour News 8's Tony Tagliavia is working this story. He's on the phone right now with new information. Tony?
Afternoon, Emily. Investigators tell us the victim has died. He's identified as a 47-year-old man from the Vicksburg area. Police say he was shot around 5:30 this morning at the Shell station in downtown Augusta when investigators say a man tried to take the car he was riding in. Police tell us the suspect then tried to take another car but failed and ran away. He ran on foot. Investigators caught up to him about a half-mile north of town. They were able to take him into custody. We talked with the Augusta police chief, who was among the law enforcement officers who took him into custody. He says he's glad they were able to take him in relatively soon.
So if someone's trying to take your vehicle and they're waving a gun at you, get out of your car, do what he says. You can always replace a car. You never know why they're trying to take your car. Could be mental illness. They could be, really whacked out on drugs or something. Trying to reason with people, it's not going to work. So whatever they tell you to do it, and then call for help. It's a shame that someone had to lose their life. The other thing about checking around your vehicle, I forgot to mention this, is that depending on where you live, you never know what may be underneath your vehicle. I don't think that was a pet, but if you're living in Florida and you know that crocodiles tend to come out on your lawn, I would always look underneath my vehicle before I got into a car. So once you're in the vehicle, what I want you to do is to lock your doors. That way people can't get in. The other thing about locking your doors is that it's going to prevent the door opening up if you ever get hit. When you get hit from the side of your vehicle, the frame of your vehicle will start to bend. And the bending is going to either pop the door or crack the window. And if you're not in your seatbelt, this is where people get thrown from their vehicle. So locking your door is a safety measure on many levels. Then adjust your seat. I think I've had 5 of you drive so far, 5 or 6. So you know that I tell you to make sure that you're in a comfortable position. Make sure that you can grab the steering wheel on either side at 10 and 2, 9 and 3, 8 and 4. Have a slight bend to your elbow and be able to use your heel and pivot between the pedals. And that is the position that you should be in when you drive. Anytime that you're reaching with your arms or reaching with your feet, you're going to probably not steer or brake or accelerate smoothly, and people are going to know that it's probably because of your position. Make sure everybody in the car is in a seatbelt. You are the driver. You are responsible for your passengers. So make sure, tell everybody, lock your seatbelt. Make sure everything is done before you pull away. Remember, too, if you're involved in a crash and your passengers get injured, you have to pay for their medical bills. You can't say, well, you should have had your seatbelt on. You've got a $15,000 medical bill because you got a concussion and you were in the hospital for 2 days. That's shame on you. No, that's shame on you. You were the driver. You've got to tell them, you either get buckled or you get out of my car. But if you get involved in a crash, it's your insurance. It's your responsibility for their medical bills. Adjusting your mirrors is the last thing that we do. And you can see in the bottom picture is a side mirror. And I always tell people to have your mirror adjusted so you see a very small sliver of your vehicle, because it gives you a reference of your car in relationship to another vehicle. And then your rear view mirror at the top picture should be as much back window as you possibly can see. All right? That's the best way to have it. Now, make sure that you do this while you're still looking straight ahead like you're driving. A lot of people that I get in the car and I tell them to adjust their mirrors, they move their body. Let me kind of show you what they do. Let me get out of here for a second. They're in the driving position. I say, adjust your mirror, and they move their body. They adjust it, and then they move back, and they go, I wonder why my mirror is out of whack. Or I say, do the side mirror, and they lean, and then they go back this way. Don't lean, adjust it, and then come back. You've got to be looking straight ahead while you're adjusting all your mirrors, because you should only use your eyes. Very little head movement when you're checking your mirrors. Now, there are different ways that people explain using mirrors. So the way that I just told you, having a little bit of the side of the car, notice in the side mirrors you can see either car in the rearview mirror. So the car to the left, the truck, you see in your left side mirror. The car that's in the right side mirror is also to the right in your rearview mirror. So it's kind of redundant, okay? Those aren't 5 vehicles. There's only 3. You're seeing a double image of the one to the left and to the right out of your rearview mirror. So if you take a look at this picture, and then you can see a dotted orange line and you can see a dotted blue line. That's what you're seeing in your rearview mirror. And then when you go way over to the blue line or way over to the orange line, that is what you're seeing in your side mirrors. So what they're saying is that there is some overlap. And the new technique that they're trying to get instructors to instill into their students is to push the side mirrors out as far as you can till you just can't see your car in your side view mirror. No longer can we see the cars in the side view mirror. You can only see the 3 cars behind you in the rear view mirror. Now, once they get closer to you, then you're going to start to see them in your side mirrors. And the images of those 2 cars, you can see the red car where the mirrors are being adjusted. Just off to the left and to the right of the car is what we consider a blind spot. So your blind spot can be somewhat eliminated by better side mirror adjustment. And we'll work on that the more that we drive. I usually don't stress side mirror usage until we get to our 4th driving time, where we focus on lane changes. So we've got a ways to go before we do side mirrors. Getting the car moving, we know that there are keys or a power button. So knowing where the ignition switch and how to turn the key just the right amount. So we're turning the key to the right, and then the car is starting up, and then we let go of the key. Understand that every car has a transmission and a clutch, But in most cars now, we call it automatic, which means the clutch is internalized in the engine and it shifts automatically. And the transmission is going to put you into a gear that is for the appropriate speed that you're trying to travel. This is why most people want an automatic, because they don't have to think or worry about shifting with their right hand and clutching and using a clutch pedal and braking with their left foot and right foot. But we're going to see more of that in a video in a moment near the end of class. Here's a big question, okay? Should you always have both hands on the steering wheel? Okay? We can always have this debate. Even when I go to driver's ed conferences, we always have debates about some of these techniques. There is no, and I showed you this yesterday, there is no column on your driving test where they can fail you for the way that you grab the steering wheel. They can't fail you for how you grab it. They can fail you if you make a bad turn. So, was the bad turn related to how you're gripping the wheel? And I tend to think that it probably is. But believe it or not, there are people that are driving a car that only have one arm. How can they drive if they only have one arm? There's something called a suicide handle, and I don't know how they came up with that name, probably because if you don't use it right, that you're going to go too fast around a corner and kill yourself. But I think that's what they used to call it when I was growing up. But it rotates. It's a little pin that you attach to the steering wheel. Let me get out of here for a second. So they attached like a little lever on the top of the steering wheel, and it can rotate. So you're steering with one arm like this. You can make a full revolution. You could just keep on going around and around. See, when you grab the steering wheel, at some point your hands can't go any further. So by having that little post on the steering wheel, you can go around. But I do find 10 and 2, 9 and 3, 8 and 4 to be the appropriate hand position. But I'm not going to get after too many people if they're making good turns of how they're grabbing the steering wheel, as long as you're making decent turns. Accelerator and brake pedal. We're going to talk a little bit about definitions and way to use these pedals in an effective way to make you a little bit smoother. I know it's the first time some of you are driving the driver's ed car, but we got to smooth out your acceleration or your braking, because it was just a little bit harsh. A few people that were driving with me of late. Real quickly, these are the gear selectors, and on an automatic, it goes from top to bottom, or if you've got it on the column shift, it goes from left to right, park, reverse, neutral, drive, and low 1, low 2. So park is what we usually have to be in order to start a car. Reverse, of course, was for going backwards. Neutral is an out of gear position, so the car will roll. So if you put the car neutral and roll it down a hill, it's going to continue to roll down until it hits something. So cars that get towed need to be in neutral. So we do use neutral every once in a while. Not in driver's ed, but, and sometime in your life you're going to use neutral. Drive is what we probably 95% of the time are in. The other 5% is probably reverse. And then low 1, low 2 is delivering more power to the wheels at a lower speed. So we see low 1, low 2, an S and an L in the driver's ed vehicle. It's actually a B for braking. So it's going to look a little bit different. See, there's the B. Okay, that's what it looks like in my car. It's a little bit of an odd shift pattern, but that's what Toyota came up with for this year. It's a 2017 Camry is what I'm driving. So we talked about both hands on the wheel, using it like the face of a clock, 8 and 4, 9 and 3, 10 and 2. Turning the wheel from the top is called a hand over hand. If we turn from the bottom, where we just push and pull the steering wheel, I'm not a big fan of that unless we're in a parking lot doing parking. But for the most part, I'd like to see people learn the hand-over-hand technique. And I think most everybody that I've driven with has been doing a fantastic job with their hand position and making turns. I haven't seen really too many bad turns. Know that the airbag is always in the middle of your steering wheel, so you never want to rest both hands on the middle of the steering wheel, because if the airbag ever comes out, your hands are going to bust your nose. You're going to mess up your face. And that's why they want you to do push-pull rather than hand-over-hand on a lot of turning in case the airbag comes out. There is a tilt position on the steering wheel, so if you need the steering wheel to go up or down or in or out, we can actually adjust that. I haven't shown that to anybody yet because I don't think anybody's had to use it, but if you do want to use it, feel free to mention it to me and I will show you how to activate it. Where the airbag is, located on the steering wheel is also the horn. So you need to push down. Hey, Julian. So you've got to make sure that if the horn is needed, you should use the horn. My class that I just finished up, not a single person used the horn. Not a single person. Okay? So if the time ever arises, I want you to use it. It's there for a reason. It's not because we're using it out of anger. It is because we want someone to turn their head. So here's one hand backing. That's my wife backing out of a driveway. So put one hand behind the passenger seat. Focus your attention out the back window. And that's how you should back. Hand over hand starts with a 9 and 3 position. And as you go into the turn, you're crossing over from the top. Once you learn that, it's the beginning of learning every other aspect of driving. Parking, merging, all this stuff will fall into place once you've got steering down, especially turning. Push-pull is from the bottom, so now you're grabbing the wheel at a little bit of a lower position, and this is where you're pushing and pulling the steering wheel. Now, I do want you to write down your notes and understand about a dead pedal. A dead pedal is where you rest your foot so your left foot doesn't interfere with the other pedals. Some people believe that you can actually use the left foot for the brake. It's not illegal. It's just not something that I encourage. I think that you should use your right foot. Notice this foot is on the floor and it's pivoting between the two pedals. That is the way you should approach using your gas and your brake. And the reason why you should is because if you ever do try to learn to drive a manual transmission, that left foot is going to have to be used for the clutch pedal. So if you're using your left foot for the clutch pedal, you're going to have to use your right foot for the brake. So you might as well learn how to use the right foot for the brake in an automatic. And also the dead pedal, if you push down on the dead pedal, it pushes the back of your back up against the seat if you're making a fast turn. So if you're making a fast turn, you want to make sure your body's upright behind the steering wheel and that you're not leaning in a direction, left or right. So if the airbag comes out, it's coming out right at you. So there's the dead pedal way over to the left. You've got your parking brake, which is where it says push on and off. And then there's the brake pedal and the gas. And by the way, that cord, that silver cord that's behind the pedals is what connects my brake. I have a brake on my side of the car in the driver's ed vehicle that will push down your brake. So if you're driving too fast or not appropriately, I can actually slow the car down. It will actually freak you out. You're going to think, does the car have a mind of itself? Why is the car slowing down? Usually I'll tell you, I'm using the brake. Don't worry, I'm slowing the car down. I don't want you to hit it even harder. All right, now I want some definitions written down. And I don't want you to write down word for word everything that's listed here, but I do want you to be familiar with a lot of the definitions here. So the first one is light acceleration. Light acceleration is used for smooth starts, and it's from a stop sign, at a traffic light. It's the beginning of all turns from a stop position. At the top bullet, I give the example of if you were to soak a sponge in water and then I told you to step on the sponge until we can see some of the water ooze out, that would be the type of pressure that you're using to get light acceleration. Any quick movement of the vehicle lurching forward is not light acceleration. That's a thrust of the gas pedal, and we don't want to feel that in the car. Now, progressive acceleration happens after light acceleration. So once we pulled away from the stop sign, traffic light, we continue to press down on the pedal until we get up to the speed that we desire, up to the speed limit. And then we have to maintain that steady pressure that we need to keep the speed. So remember, as I showed you yesterday, when the state takes you out to drive, they're looking at your use of your pedals and your lane position. So don't overlook what you're doing with your braking and your accelerating. It may feel okay for you, but you're driving for them. Like you're driving for me right now. You want to impress me. Every time that you come out in the driver's ed car, you are performing for me. You're trying to impress me, to make me believe that you're ready to drive independently by yourself. Now, you may like to go fast around corners. You may like to brake last second, and you don't mind the jerking of a vehicle, but you've got to wait till you're fully licensed and you're the only one in the car, because a driving examiner or me, and probably even your parents, are going to probably pick apart what you're doing with your pedals. So look for smooth, look for controlled, okay? Cover brake. This, people ask me, how do you know? Yeah, why? Hello there, fellow drivers ed learners. Yeah, I always have people popping in, and I don't mind. When I'm at the high school, people will sometimes even pop into the classroom to say hello. So I don't mind people bombing into my class for a moment. Cover brake is always an indicator to me of someone that's done a lot of driving. When I watch you drive for the first time, one of the key things I'm looking for is what you do with your feet. You know, are you anticipating? And I like that word, anticipating. It's used when you think something's going to happen. So I may not have to say, watch out for the light change, watch out for the pedestrian. If I look at your feet and I see you go off the gas pedal and I can see you moving over to the brake, I know you see the pedestrian. I see you reacting to the light that's changing. And that's a good thing. Sometimes covering a brake is used going down a hill where you don't want to go any faster. And you know that if you do get going too fast, the next pedal you do need is the brake and not the accelerator. So when you're coasting down a hill, you shouldn't be resting your foot hovering over the gas pedal. It should be hovering over the brake pedal, because that's the pedal that you're going to probably need going too fast, going down a hill. So it's just a hovering over the pedal. Control braking, you can just write down, is regular braking. It's used for just normal parking, stopping, all non-emergency situations. And you're going to hear this word a lot, pitch. Pitch basically means that the vehicle is moving forward and then it's coming backwards. You always want to feel a pitch to your stops. There will always be some type of pitch with acceleration, because when you hit the gas pedal, the car is going to dip backwards a little bit. So it does pitch a little bit on accelerations. But you don't want to pitch too hard. You just basically want to feel the limousine stop. Sure, Julian, stay as long as you want. Julian was one of my better drivers from his class that I had in the springtime. I'm very proud of the type of driver that he turned out to be. Limousine stops is where you're trying to stop the vehicle prior to the stop line. So about 5 feet to 10 feet, you're braking almost to a stop, and then you're cruising up just a little bit further, okay? So always think, if I'm going to implement a limousine stop, you're trying to stop almost fully 5 feet before the stop line, and then you're cruising up the last 5 feet with a little bit of taking up off of the brake pedal. Trail braking is decreasing pressure from the brake pedal to move the car. So when you're backing out of your driveway, when you're going into a parking spot, at the beginning of a turn from a stop position, will be what we call trail braking, is that you're letting go of the brake to get the car, because the car does idle. There is gas going to the cylinders. The car will start to move. So you're letting go of the pedal slightly to move the vehicle. All right. I always tell people, if you're in a parking lot, I would say you're probably 90% of the time going to be on the brake pedal, even on level ground, looking for a parking spot. The car's going to idle fast enough to move you up the lane to get to your parking spot. It's the people that are on that's going to kind of mess you up a little bit. If you're on the gas pedal going into a parking spot, it's not going to be the best. Threshold braking is maximum force on the brake pedal. All right, so we're talking about a child runs out in front of you, a car backs out from a parking spot. You're just hitting the brake pedal as hard as you can. Now, I always like to explain it this way. You cannot break the brake. Think about that. You cannot break the brake. So hit it as hard as you want. Okay, it may force you right up against your seatbelt. It's going to be a snap, but you want maximum force to stop the vehicle. Now, this is a sign of a person that's done a lot of driving. Understand that the brake pedal can make you go faster, and the gas pedal can be used to make you go slower. All right? So each pedal does the opposite. So when you let go of the gas pedal, you do slow down. When you let go of the brake pedal, you do go faster. So sometimes when I say go slower, I don't mean brake. I mean just let go of the accelerator. Sometimes when we're in a parking lot and I want you to go faster, just let go of the brake a little bit. So most pedals can be learned within a new driver. May take an hour or two with me to get used to a new car, new brake, new acceleration. But your parents, when they buy a rental or have a rental car to use, they're learning the pedals within the first 10 minutes. They're getting, okay, this is how much pressure I need to do what I need to do in this car. You just learn how to adapt pretty quick. Parking brake does keep your car from rolling on any type of a hill, incline, or decline. So we will set the parking brake if we're not on level ground. When we're usually on level ground, I do not use the parking brake. I basically just put it in park because the car is not going to roll anywhere. The gauges, this is what I want you to write down. Gauges should always be checked the minute you get into a car and start a car. You want to make sure that you have enough fuel. You want to make sure that the tire pressure, and a lot of times there'll be an indicator. Now, there's a little yellow triangle that's lit up right now on this picture. That is indicating I need an oil change. So understanding, and we're going to spend some time at the end of tonight's class basically going through gauges, knowing what they mean. Now, anytime you see a warning light that is red, okay, write this down, need your immediate attention. Anytime that you see a indicator on your dash that is yellow, it just tells you that something is being activated. Now, the driver's ed car is a hybrid, so that's why you see a green light. So green relates to a hybrid or energy conscious vehicle, all right? It could be like an electric car. So your lights are communicating, and notice we've got the red for the seatbelt, we've got the yellow for the oil change, and then we've got the green telling us that we're activating the battery of the hybrid. Absolutely need to know how fast you're going. There's no excuse for not knowing how fast you're going. So in the driver's ed car, we have two speedometers. One is the traditional dial with the little lines for 5, the thicker lines for 10. But we also have a digital speedometer that is going to tell you exactly how fast you're going. Odometer, the only thing you need to know about that is how many miles the car has actually been driven. Why is that important? If you ever sell the car, cars that have more miles have more wear and tear, and you're probably going to pay less for a vehicle with high mileage. The other thing I want you to write down in your notes with the odometer is that it alerts you to when you have to have maintenance done. So if you look at your owner's manual, and part of your homework I'm going to put on Facebook a little bit later tonight, not only are you going to have to know what all these gauges are, but you're going to need to know about certain aspects of your vehicle, like when should I get my oil changed, what tire size do I need to put on my vehicle. Things like that are very important. But an odometer will tell you about maintenance, like oil changes, transmission flushes, power steering fluid flushes. So anytime that you have to replace fluid, it's based on mileage. Now, and sometimes if you open up the engine, you can take a look at the reservoir, and it will tell you whether you're at minimum level or maximum level, and that of course tells you whether you've got to do some adding of some of these fluids. But you're driving something that's worth thousands of dollars. You need to spend a little bit of time of understanding what makes this car run and work. We're not trying to make you a mechanic, but we are trying to make you understand, just like on your computer, when you've got that death wheel going, you know something's not right. So when you lock up your computer, you're going to have to know how to fix it. Or if you get a malware, a virus, how to get rid of it. Your car is the same thing. You've got to understand how to make sure that it's functional for you and to keep it at its optimum level when you're driving. Tripometer tracks the miles that the vehicle has gone over a certain period of time. Fuel gauge, and unfortunately, I can't have you pump gas. The state tells me, well, we still got this COVID thing going on. I've got to do all the filling up of the gas. So I'm the one. And I'm sure with a class this size, there are at least some of you that have never gone to a gas station and have put fuel in a vehicle. Now, you'd think that it's pretty simple, but for the first time, you may do some things that are not safe or things that are wrong. And we're going to talk about what to do at a gas station in another class. We don't have enough time to do it tonight. But fuel is important, so make sure that you always check the gauges and make sure that we have enough to get to where we're going. Alternator, so for the next 3 bullets, I just want you to write down just a few things. Alternator, I want you to write down equals electrical problem. So you have a light or a gauge, which is called the alternator gauge, which is telling you that your electrical system is being drained and it's not working properly. Your car will probably stall soon. It could be a bad battery. It could be a bad alternator. Okay, so you do have that indicator on your vehicle. Temperature gauge makes sense. If it says temperature, it has something to do with the temperature of your engine. It's usually because you're running too hot. There is something called coolant. It's this yellowish greenish stuff that you put in a radiator to go through your system. The biggest enemy of metal is heat. So we have a radiator fluid going through our engine to kind of maintain an adequate temperature so these metal parts will do their job. Once there is no fluid going through or the fluid's not effective anymore, you're going to be running hot and the engine is going to overheat and you're going to have a real problem with your engine. Your brake warning light, problem with the brakes might be low brake fluid, or there could be a leak in the system. So make sure that you check that, open up the hood, take a look at that. And probably the one that you should know the most is the oil pressure warning light. This basically tells you that there's not enough oil getting pumped through the engine and that you should stop driving immediately. This is the biggest thing. This happened to my daughter. My oldest daughter did not get her oil changed correctly, and we were driving to Texas, and in the middle of Virginia, around 6 o'clock at night, her engine seized. There was not enough oil to lubricate the pistons and the cylinders, and she ruined her engine. They told us it was going to cost us $2,500 to put a new engine in the car. And if she would have had the oil changed the way it was supposed to, an oil change is around $40. So $40 compared to $2,500. Okay, I think you can kind of figure out, okay, where you're going to be saving your money, okay, is by maintaining your car, making sure. Now, this was a question that was on the pretest. It's amazing how many people do not know about backup lights or parking lights. Anything that deals with lights, you should have a basic understanding of where they're located and what color they are. In driver's ed, color of signs, colors of traffic lights, colors of lights on your vehicle communicate what is happening. So you need to know your light color, all right? Make sure that we're comfortable when we're driving. Heat and air is being pushed through the vehicle. And then radio, we do listen to the radio at times, but only at a very low volume. And then your phone is connected to your car, so you can use Bluetooth. So in the driver's ed car, it's connected to me. But when you get your car, you can have it connected to you. The gas lever is on the floor, right next to the trunk lever and the hood lever, all located where you have to push or pull up on a lever. Headlights are at the end of your directionals, so we go over this your first time out driving with me. And your windshield wipers are located on the right side of the steering wheel. On some cars, you spin them. On some cars, you go down with the lever. In the driver's ed car, you go down with the lever. Now, these are the symbols that we're going to be going over. I'm going to put this on Facebook at some point tonight. This is going to be part of your homework, so you're going to have to do these 2 sheets. And then I don't know if I've got the other page. It's about knowing your vehicle. That's going to be also on Facebook. But we talked a little bit about driving a manual transmission. So I want to show you a video of someone that explained driving a manual transmission, about the clutch pedal and moving forward. So I want to spend a little bit of time on that. So I want to show you this video.
So you want to drive a car with a manual transmission? Well, I have bad news and good news. The bad news is there are fewer models on the market now than ever before that have a proper 3-pedal manual transmission. The good news is the ones that do offer the feature are easier to learn on than old cars were. Whether you're going to drive a new car or an old car, I commend you, and I'll get you started. Now, the first part of the lesson is I'm going to explain what's going on when you're operating the manual transmission. Now, it isn't absolutely necessary. It could just be about a stick and a pedal. But what I found is people tend to grasp this a little bit faster, learn faster if they understand what is actually going on under the surface. A car with a gas or diesel engine has a transmission with multiple gears for the same reason a bicycle does. A good bicycle, not one of those retro hipster one-speed bikes, please. The idea behind having these gears is you can pedal only so fast, and you'll reach a certain point, and to go faster, you need to shift up. Same thing is true with a car's engine. Let's take a look at the tachometer. The tachometer is a gauge that shows engine speed, and essentially all cars have them, even automatics. You just don't pay attention to it. It'll be marked typically 1, 2, 3, 4, or in some cases 10, 20, 30, but the idea is multiplied by some number that is the revolutions per minute of the engine. And when you hit the gas a bit, you'll see the needle goes up as the engine speed increases. Typically, though, a gas engine will run only up to about 6,000 to 8,000 RPM. It depends on the car, and there are some exceptions. In this car, it's about 7,400 RPM where you see a red line begin. And that red line is called the red line. And the engine is not supposed to run in the red line because it can be damaged. Now, newer cars are less likely to actually incur damage than older ones, but still, that's not where you want to be. So, if you want to go faster and faster in a car, you need to be able to shift to the next gear. Simple, right? Just like a bicycle. Well, there's one area where it's not like a bicycle. On a bicycle, when you start out, you just pedal 1, 2, 3, 4. You can start from a standing stop. An engine, on the other hand, has an idle speed of typically 750 RPM. So it'll run from 750 RPM to, in this case, 7,400. But below 750, nothing. So what's happening is, when you're sitting still, your engine is going 750 RPM, and your transmission and the gears are not moving at all. And you've got to get them going together at the same speed. And that is going to be your job through the use of the clutch pedal. And you are going to suck at it. It's going to be hilarious. To me, you're going to hate it, but I'm laughing just thinking about it. But here, you probably ought to laugh at it too, because you're going to be bad. But if you stick with it and practice, you're going to get better. So let's start with the pedals. You'll see the extra one here, the third, that is the clutch pedal. But it looks like there are 4 pedals in this car, and that is because this one is, it's technically called the dead pedal, but a better word for that is the footrest. It doesn't really do anything. And footrest is a good name because that is what you're supposed to do, and that is rest your foot there. Do not leave your foot on the clutch pedal. The whole point behind the clutch is use it, and then you get off of it. Put your foot on the dead pedal or the footrest. Here's an important tip before you even get started. When you're operating the clutch pedal, you need your whole leg. You're not putting your heel down, anchoring it like you might with the accelerator pedal and just tilting at the ankle. You need your whole leg. It's a little bit more like a brake pedal in that regard. Also, when you apply the pedal, you always go all the way down to the floor and release all the way out. Always step in all the way, release all the way, and when you're not using the clutch, rest on the dead pedal. Now, before you even head out, if you're just learning how to drive a manual transmission, think ahead and wear sensible shoes. You don't need fancy driving shoes or anything, but here's a tip. Don't wear a big clunky shoe, and don't wear anything with a big heel. And don't judge me. I'm trying to help you, and it's free. Once you learn how to drive, you can wear whatever you want, but for training purposes, be sensible. Now let's get to know the shifter, or the stick, which is how you put the transmission in the different gears. The pattern for the forward gears is pretty much the same in everything, and you'll see it either on top of the knob or somewhere nearby. Typically, the difference between vehicles is really just about how many forward gears it has. This car has 6. Older cars may stop at 4 forward gears. Some cars these days have 7. All just affects how much shifting you'll be doing. Now, one of the most important things you need to know is when it's not in gear, and that is neutral. Neutral position is straight in the middle of all of these, and you'll know it's in neutral when the stick wobbles left and right. Now, I'm going to step on the clutch pedal, even though the engine is off, and you'll see now I'm in first gear, up and to the left. Now notice it doesn't slide left and right. In neutral, there's my wobble. So first, second is below, to the right and up is third, and so on. It's pretty simple stuff. Now, all cars are going to have a reverse gear. That can be in a different location. It used to be up and to the right for a lot of cars. Nowadays, you're starting to see them on the left. The best cars will have a little lockout, like this lift collar, that prevents you from going into reverse unless you really mean it. And when you're practicing going into first, once you get a little bit good at that, you can start doing the same thing with reverse. Okay, you want to find an empty or nearly empty parking lot or road, and it's important that it be flat because you're going to be practicing taking off in first gear and reverse, and the effects of gravity can just complicate things. You need to start the car. When you start a manual transmission, it's always important to make sure it is in neutral. Wiggle that stick. And in newer cars especially, it's necessary, not just good practice, to step on the clutch pedal because that will allow the engine to start. Without stepping on that pedal, you can turn the key all you want. It wouldn't have started with a new car. So when you take off from a stop in a car with a manual transmission, you are essentially trying to coordinate the application of the gas and the release of the clutch pedal, or the engagement of the clutch. But what I'm going to do is have you practice first without stepping on the gas at all. Just use the clutch pedal to get a feel for the clutch engagement. Now, when you lift off the pedal, you're engaging the clutch. When you step on, you're disengaging. I'm just going to call it clutch in, and clutch out, because that's the simplest thing to remember when the time comes to actually do it. So what you'll do is you're going to watch my feet, watch everything I do. You're stepping on the clutch pedal, all right? Stick goes into first. I happen to have the brake on, so I'm going to take the parking brake off. And then you're just going to slowly let that clutch pedal out. See what I'm doing right now. Now, if you have a newer car, this is actually a little easier, because the engine control unit, the computer, senses the load and will compensate and give you a little bit more gas. So here you can see my foot's off the pedal. I'm in first gear and I'm moving. Pretty simple stuff. Every car is different. I'm going to do it again for you. Here's how we stop. I've got my foot over the brake, clutch in, and I pull the shifter out of first into neutral and come to a stop. All cars are different. What you're doing here is you're getting a feel for where the clutch engages. In some cars it's lower in the pedal travel, like close to the floor, and some it's higher up. All cars are at least a little bit different. So again, clutch in, first gear, let it out slowly. And there you go. You putter around. You can putter around a little bit in first gear if you want to. We'll discuss whether or not we drive in first gear in a bit. So clutch in, stick into neutral, brake, we stop. Now it's actually the same situation for going in reverse, aside from the gear being different. Clutch in, I'm lifting the collar as necessary for this, putting it in reverse, and slowly letting that pedal out. Now I am looking behind me and I have a backup camera, so I don't want it to look like I'm just blindly backing up. There we go, and we're moving. Now you might find that, I'm going to stop now, ready? Remember, clutch in, brake, and take the stick into neutral. Reverse gear tends to be a little bit faster than first because it's the only one you got. So it will feel a little bit different. You're going to want to practice with that too. Now, having gotten a feel for the clutch application, I'm going to show you how we apply the gas and release the clutch at the same time. And it lets you do the same thing you just did, but faster. Here we go. Clutch in, first gear. Now, watch my feet. I'm going to add some gas and release the clutch, and we're moving in first gear. You can hear we're moving faster this time. Okay, same as last time. Clutch in, braking, stick back into neutral. Now, you probably want me to tell you what RPM you should be going when you release the clutch to take off. I can't tell you that. Reason being, first of all cars are different. I want to say it's going to be around 2,000 RPM just to get you going. But first, all cars are different. And second, I don't want you focusing on the tachometer. You're much better off getting a feel for this just by doing it. And I feel the same way about when we get to the point where we're shifting through the higher gears as well. So we did it once. Let's do it again. Ready? Clutch in, into first gear, adding a little gas, letting out the clutch. Okay? Now, let me give you one tip that I think is one of the most useful things that I've found from instructing people on how to drive manual transmissions, and that is there's a notion that this has to be the perfect synchronized balletic application and release, perfectly even, and that's actually not true. What I've found is a lot of people find the process a lot easier while they're learning if they partway through releasing that clutch, they just, if it starts to grab, just hold for a second and then release the clutch the rest of the way. I'm going to try and do that again so you can see what I'm doing. Rather than just trying to robotically go in with the gas and out with the clutch, it's you're applying, you come out a bit with your clutch foot. See my hand here. Wait a second. When it starts to grab, just give it a half second and then release the rest of the way. Here's what I'm doing. Ready? Kind of hard to see, I know, but maybe you understand from what I'm describing. And The thing with that is you got to be a little bit careful about overdoing it. You cannot take forever to get your foot off the clutch pedal. What you're trying to do is go from clutch in to clutch out reasonably quickly, and you don't want to do what's called riding the clutch, where you're kind of controlling the car's speed by how much you're letting the clutch slip. That's bad news, and it wears the clutch really quickly. But on the other hand, this one tip seems to help people an awful lot. Now, you'll notice if you do things real slowly, clutch in, first gear. If you do things slowly, you can give it less gas. Here we go, ready? I'm hardly giving it any gas. It's not much different from when I didn't use the gas at all, right? If you want to take off faster, you're going to have to give it more gas. For example, clutch in, first gear. See that? Much faster. Same thing's true if you're on a hill, and I'm going to address hills in a bit too. If you're on a hill, uphill I should say, you're going to have to give it more gas to get you going. Now,
So hopefully this is a good overview. If you've never driven a manual transmission vehicle, I thought he did a fantastic job of explaining the process of pushing the clutch down, shifting the car, finding the friction point, feeling the car move, and then learning how to go through the gears. I think it's a good thing to learn how to do. I do not have a vehicle in my driver's ed, collection of cars. I only have 2 cars, and they're both automatic. I used to teach on a standard transmission at some point, but I just don't have that car any longer. So hopefully this was helpful to you. Hopefully going over all the controls, this was, something that you're familiar with. If not, then you should get familiar with. Your homework, for those of you that don't have a textbook yet, I did download a PDF file. If it didn't get into the remote Facebook page correctly, let me know, and I'll try to send it to you directly, either through a text message or through email. I will also put the gauge sheet that I want you to do, so some homework will be posted in a few moments after we're done. But I still want to stress, please fill out, let me put it up here again. Please take a look at the Facebook page. If you don't have the Facebook page, just take a look. I've got the calendar for next week. These are the hours that I will drive with people from 8 to 5. So let me know if you can drive all day Tuesday. Let me know. Mr. Toll, I can do all day Tuesday. I'm going to be gone Wednesday. I could do Thursday in the morning. So let me know what you have available. And I will try to contact you in the next day or two and give you a full week schedule. A lot of you haven't driven yet, so it's really important that you try to open up your calendar. Remember, this is just like a basketball practice or even a work schedule. If you work at Market Basket, your parents have to get you to work. So find a way to get to the school, to get your driving hours in. This is a lesson, and we're going to be going over material. Remember, I do have a few openings for tomorrow and for Saturday afternoon, and Sunday I'm just going till around noontime. So let me know what works for you. So that is basically what we've got for tonight. Next week, when we get back together, we're going to be going through safety equipment. And we'll be focusing on airbags, restraints, your headrest, helmets, and things like that. So if you have any questions, make sure that you text me. I think it's been a great week, so I appreciate you tuning in and paying attention. Just remember to do your work and send that along to me, and we'll try to get you scheduled for next week. So with that, have a good night. Hopefully it won't snow too much tomorrow, so we will be able to drive the whole time. So have a good vacation. If for those of you that are going to be gone for the week, we'll see when you get back. And for those of you that are going to be sticking around, we're going to get behind the wheel of the car and get into parking and some other interesting things getting you to the point where you can pass your state driver's test. So read, do your work, and we'll see you in a week and a half online at 7:30. And I don't even know the date. I think it's like March. I don't have it in front of me. I think it's like March 2nd or something like that. So, okay, we'll see you in a bit. Have a good night.